Best of luck to them if one chooses to stand up. They are enjoying their lowest approval rating ever because this is who.
The View, a daytime TV juggernaut, has long thrived on its mix of sharp-tongued commentary, glossy production, and a panel of hosts who wield opinions like weapons. For years, the show's hosts, Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, Sunny Hostin, and others, have sat around their polished table, coffee mugs in hand, delivering takes that spark applause from their studio audience and fuel endless social media chatter. They've built a brand on being unapologetically outspoken, often framing themselves as the moral compass of American discourse. But in a stunning turn of events, that carefully crafted image came crashing down when Karoline Leavitt, a relatively unknown figure, took the show to court with an $800 million defamation lawsuit. What unfolded wasn't just a legal battle, it was a cultural reckoning that exposed the fragility of The View's self-proclaimed untouchability and sent shockwaves through the media world. The lawsuit stemmed from the show's relentless targeting of Leavitt, a conservative figure who had become a frequent punching bag for the hosts. The View's formula was simple: take a conservative, twist their words, paint them as a villain, and wrap it all in snarky banter for the audience's amusement. Leavitt, a spokesperson aligned with Donald Trump's camp, was an easy mark for their outrage. Episode after episode, the hosts took aim, accusing her of everything from spreading misinformation to being a threat to democracy. Their attacks weren't just political critiques, they were personal, laced with exaggerations and distortions that stretched the truth beyond recognition. The audience clapped, the cameras rolled, and the hosts moved on, assuming their words were just entertainment, harmless in the grand scheme of daytime TV. But Leavitt wasn't playing along. She didn't fire back with tweets or viral videos. Instead, she quietly gathered evidence, transcripts, clips, timelines, and built a case that would turn The View's world upside down. Her lawsuit accused the show of defamation, alleging that their attacks crossed the line from opinion to deliberate character assassination. This wasn't about a single offhand comment or a heated debate. Leavitt's legal team argued that The View's relentless campaign against her had caused real, measurable harm to her reputation, and they had the receipts to prove it. The courtroom became a stage where the show's glitzy bravado was stripped away, revealing a pattern of reckless falsehoods masked by studio lights and rehearsed laughs. The trial was a spectacle, not because it was dramatic, but because it was so brutally methodical. Leavitt's lawyers came armed with a mountain of evidence, clips from the show, social media posts, and even internal communications that suggested the producers knew their claims were shaky but ran with them anyway. The View's defense, by contrast, seemed unprepared, as if they'd assumed their status as a TV institution would shield them. The hosts, used to dominating conversations with quips and applause, were suddenly silent, their confidence replaced by the grim realization that their words had consequences. The judge and jury didn't just side with Leavitt, they delivered a verdict that slapped The View with an $800 million judgment, a financial and reputational gut punch that left the media world reeling. The fallout was immediate and chaotic. The View, once a ratings powerhouse, found itself on shaky ground. Sponsors, sensing the toxicity, began pulling ads faster than you could say commercial break. Brands that once clamored to align with the show's chatty charm, think cozy coffee companies and lifestyle products, vanished, replaced by low-budget ads for obscure products. Behind the scenes, producers scrambled to contain the damage. Legal teams were reportedly brought in to vet every word before it hit the airwaves, turning the once freewheeling show into a tightly scripted affair. The hosts, known for their fiery monologues, now had to tiptoe around their own opinions, wary of another multi-million-dollar misstep. The studio, once alive with laughter and applause, felt like a pressure cooker, with staff reportedly tense and morale at an all-time low. But the real damage wasn't just internal, it was cultural. The View had spent years branding itself as the voice of progressive reason, a place where liberal ideals were championed and conservatives were mocked as backward or dangerous. They'd leaned hard into anti-Trump rhetoric, painting the former president and his supporters as existential threats. When Trump was just a real estate mogul and reality TV star, the hosts had welcomed him warmly, with Whoopi Goldberg offering hugs and Barbara Walters calling him a friend. But the moment he entered politics, donning that red "Make America Great Again" hat, the tone shifted. The hugs turned to scorn, the smiles to sneers. The View didn't just criticize Trump's policies, they went after his character, his supporters, and anyone associated with him, including Leavitt. Their narrative was clear. Trump and his allies were the modern equivalent of history's worst villains, and anyone who disagreed was either ignorant or complicit. This approach resonated with their core audience, but alienated millions of Americans who saw through the hyperbole. The View's hosts didn't just disagree with conservatives, they dismissed them, often with a smugness that assumed half the country was too dumb to know better. Leavitt, in their eyes, was just another disposable target, a name to toss around for laughs and claps. But what they didn't count on was her resolve. Leavitt wasn't a media star or a political heavyweight. She was a determined underdog who refused to let her name be dragged through the mud. Her lawsuit didn't just challenge the View's attacks on her. It called out the entire ecosystem of performative outrage that the show represented. And when the verdict came down, it wasn't just a win for Leavitt, it was a signal to every media outlet that the days of unchecked slander were over. Enter Joe Rogan, the podcaster whose razor-sharp commentary turned the View's defeat into a cultural moment. Rogan didn't just cover the lawsuit, he dissected it with a mix of humor and brutal honesty that made his audience howl. On his show, The Joe Rogan Experience, he tore into the View's format, calling it a rabies-infested henhouse, where facts were trampled by emotion and dissent was silenced by shouting matches. He didn't see the show as a platform for debate, but as a stage for group therapy gone wrong, where hosts competed to outdo each other's outrage. Rogan's critique wasn't just funny, it was incisive, exposing the show's reliance on scripted drama over substance. He pointed out how The View often brought in token conservatives, like Meghan McCain or Elizabeth Hasselbeck, only to interrupt or mock them, ensuring their voices were drowned out by the liberal majority. Rogan's takedown hit harder because he'd been in The View's crosshairs before. The hosts had dismissed him as a conspiracy theorist, mocking his discussions about everything from elk meat to psychedelics. But while they laughed, Rogan was building a media empire that dwarfed their influence, with millions tuning into his unfiltered conversations. When The View lost the lawsuit, Rogan pounced, framing their defeat as a long-overdue reality check. He didn't just roast the hosts, he exposed the flaw at the heart of their show, a belief that loud opinions and studio applause could substitute for truth. His commentary turned the lawsuit into a broader indictment of mainstream media, where performance often trumps accountability. The internet, predictably, had a field day. Within hours of the verdict, memes flooded social media, turning The View's downfall into a digital roast. Clips of the host's most absurd moments, Whoopi's dramatic monologues, Joy Behar's eye-rolling quips, were remixed with courtroom sound effects and sad violin music. One viral post photoshopped the hosts onto a wheel of misfortune, labeled with legal terms like defamation and public shame. Another slapped Leavitt's face onto an Uno reverse card, captioned, "She took their views and made them pay-per-view." The online carnage was relentless, with ex-users piling on with their own takes, many echoing Rogan's sentiment that The View had become a caricature of itself. What made the lawsuit so seismic wasn't just the money or the memes, it was the precedent it set. The View's loss sent a chill through every TV studio in America. Producers and hosts began second-guessing their own scripts, wondering if their next hot take could land them in court. Legal teams started combing through archives, tallying up every time a show had labeled someone a fascist or a liar without proof. Karoline Leavitt's victory wasn't just personal, it was a warning shot to an industry that had grown too comfortable bending the truth for ratings. The View, once a symbol of daytime TV's untouchable status, had become a cautionary tale, proof that no amount of fame or applause could shield you from accountability. The irony was impossible to miss. For years, The View had positioned itself as a champion of truth, railing against misinformation while accusing conservatives of peddling lies. Yet when push came to shove, it was their own words that crumbled under scrutiny. Leavitt's legal team didn't just win with passion, they won with cold, hard evidence. Transcripts showed how the hosts had twisted Leavitt's statements, taking them out of context to fit their narrative. Internal emails suggested producers were aware of the inaccuracies, but prioritized drama over accuracy. In court, The View's defense unraveled like a cheap sweater, with their lawyers struggling to justify claims that were clearly more about entertainment than truth.